I would like to tell you good luck in your mother language. A chancellor.
But I can't share the screen.
Can you see the bottom of share?
Yeah, just
here.
Yeah. Just please raise your hand. Raise your hand first, because I need to give you the presentation to enable it for you.
Can you see me? I just raised my hand.
Yes. Yeah. So it's enabled now.
I got it.
You can do it. You can.
I will use a screen. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Not.
We can see well.
Yeah. This now. Okay. Yes.
I can't see myself. This is really weird. All right. Okay. There's no interaction between me and you, but anyway, I will continue. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes. Amazing.
Okay. Wonderful. So, hi. Thank you very much for joining me on this Friday evening. It is 8 o'clock in Turkey and 5 p.m. in London, and you might be joining from different time zones, but wherever you're joining from, welcome to this session. And thank you very much for your patience. I have been together with you actually since 5 p.m. in London time, and today is Friday, and it is amazing to see so many people today in this room. So my name is Evrim. Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. I am from Turkey, and I have been working as the associate professor, as faculty member, more than 25 years, actually. I am the advisor to the rector and dean of the students. And also this year, I am the president of TESOL Turkey. Thank you very much. In this session, I will talk about trauma-informed teaching, crafting safe and supportive environments for students. Actually, before I chose this topic, I thought it would be a little bit weird for everybody, but having listened to Anas and Hugh Daller, I think this is a good topic because trauma really everywhere, whether you are as a non-native speakerism or the technology, online teaching, I think this is in that sense a good topic. So let me start with a quotation. Okay. I'm giving you just a few seconds. Please have a look at this quotation because it is by an English teacher, and make a guess, when do you think it was said? Who knew it would be the last time I would ask, how are you? If I had known, I would look you in your eyes, say a hearty good morning, or pat on your back. It was said in 2021 by an English teacher. Yes, it was said right after the pandemic broke out. Remember, 2 years ago, one day we woke up and learned that we locked up. We found ourselves isolated. It was a trauma for me, and I'm sure it was for you too, because we were away from our beloved ones, alone, and felt helpless, didn't we? So this is one of the reasons why I chose this topic, because we live in a time full of trauma. We are facing many difficulties and many problems, such as pandemic, war, compulsory mobility because of the climate change, migration, disasters, even advanced technology, artificial intelligence, right? And many more. I mean, having listened to Anna's wonderful presentation about non-native speaker, I think it is also a trauma. And having listened to Hugh's presentation on online teaching, pedagogical competencies, how to teach online, it is also trauma to me because I experience it really. So wherever we live, Middle East, Europe, Africa, America, whoever we are, British, American, Syrian, doesn't matter. I think trauma is everywhere. Last year, a very massive earthquake hit Turkey and we lost our people. We lost our houses. We lost our properties. It was a big trauma. But a recent study, despite all this trauma, the recent study showed that we, as teachers, are not ready for trauma and not many professional development activities are offered. Definitely, we are not psychologists or we are not psychiatrists, but we are teachers and we need to help our students. So in this session, I would like to talk about how to recognize trauma and how to help our students in a better way in our English language classrooms as English teachers. So objective of my session tonight is to define trauma and trauma-informed teaching, to define its effects on students, and to discuss the role of teachers in creating a safe and supportive environment. So shall we start with the definition, the easy part then? I know that you keep using trauma a lot in your daily life, but do you know how to define it? Yeah, I mean, when you look up the dictionary, you may see different definition, but very basically, trauma is an emotional, psychological, or physical response to an event or series of events that are shocking, distressing, or harmful. I think here the keywords are reaction, emotional, psychological, and the physical reactions to what? To the events. What kind of events? Shocking, distressing, and the harmful. Trauma can stem from a variety of sources such as violence, abuse, neglect, suicide, substance abuse, mental health problems, family separation, stress, war, disaster, immigration, anything which cause long-lasting and chronic effects on our psychology, on our brain, or on our physical capacity. Looking at all these reasons and looking at the world we are living in, I think it is not exaggeration to say that really trauma is everywhere. Even advanced technology, especially artificial intelligence, may cause trauma on us. Last week, I was surfing on an internet and I noticed that chart and I was really scared. Of course, technology has wonderful advantages, but especially thinking about the negative effects on us, like cyberbullying, addiction to digital devices, and the negative impact on mental health resulting from social isolation. Technology can be traumatic, really, sometimes. So as teachers, it is one of our responsibilities to help our students in this complex and complicated worlds. Irrespective of what we are teaching, doesn't matter, English, history, math, but how can we help our students in this traumatic world matters. Now, I can imagine that most of you are English teachers or the directors, managers, or peer service teachers, I don't know. But I want you to think about your students in your class or in your school. Do you have any refugee students in your class? Do you have? You know, they find themselves isolated from their familiar social network because they had to leave their wonderful countries. In Turkey, we have immigrant students, and I believe it is very possible that you have one of these students because according to United Nations World Migration Report, the number of international migrants was estimated to be 300 million. 300 million. Oh my God, it's a huge number. And recent research also indicates that these students are at greater risk than adults because they can easily develop depression, anxiety, and vulnerability because of the result of their migration journey. So the question is how we can identify the students, how we can recognize the signs of trauma of the students who have family separations or who have experienced disasters, war, or any loss. For example, you have Ali in your classroom, okay? Ali is a 13-year-old. He has a history of absenteeism. He comes to school very late, very often. He looks very tired and he is suffering from lack of concentration and lots of disruptive behaviors and very rare participation in class discussion. If it were me at the beginning of my teaching career, I would usually label this kind of students, come on, very lazy. Ali doesn't have any responsibilities. He is not a responsible student. He is always having concentration problems, I would say, because I wouldn't recognize the signs. High absenteeism. Always arriving classroom late, looking tired, disruptive behaviors, rare participation. I wouldn't have this experience, but these are the signs of trauma. Maybe you have Alex in your classroom. He has a history of frequent mood swings and angry outbursts, again, coming home with visible signs of exhaustion and his grades fluctuating. And he always involves in physical fights with the classmates. Yeah, again, very visible signs, mood swings, angry outbursts, exhaustion, fluctuating grade, and the physical fight. Actually, if you are aware of these signs, believe me, they are the signs of the visible, only the visible part of an iceberg. Disruptive behaviors, visible part of the iceberg. Lack of concentration, visible part of the iceberg. Absenteeism, visible part of the iceberg. But we, as the teachers, need to see and look beneath of this iceberg. If you are aware the beneath of the iceberg, then you can ask these questions. What might be the underlying reasons of these behaviors? What strategies could I implement to support Ali's attendance and engagement? How can I foster a supportive environment for Ali? How can I collaborate with other professionals? If you are asking this kind of questions, this is really wonderful because it shows that you are able to recognize trauma and you are aware of these negative behaviors and you are aware of the visible part of the iceberg and you are really look beneath. Okay, wonderful. So then let's focus on the effects of trauma on students. There are cognitive, emotional, behavior, and the physical effects. As we have seen in the case of Ali and Alexis, I talk about these visible behaviors. Let me wrap up everything, all these behaviors once more. If your students avoid activities they used to enjoy once upon a time, but now they isolate themselves from others, then probably it might be a sign of trauma. Some students may exhibit aggressive behavior, physical aggression, verbal outbursts, or bullying, and then it might be a sign of a trauma. I'm not telling you this is definitely a trauma, but I am telling you it may be a sign of trauma. Maybe you can observe your students who has sudden decline in their academic performance. It may be an indicative of underlying trauma, indicative factor of underlying trauma. I'm sure you have students sleeping in your classes, but trauma, just remember, disrupts sleep patterns like insomnia, nightmares, or other sleep-related issues. So it might be a sign for trauma. Anxiety, depression. Traumatized students show anxiety and depression, especially in situations that trigger some memories of the trauma. For example, a sudden noise or a taste or a smell or a tremor. They show sudden reaction. Mood swings, up and downs, sudden cries or laughters. Traumatized students have difficulty in trusting other people. So it is very difficult for these students to form and maintain healthy relationships. And they display a kind of low self-esteem. Yeah, they feel inadequate. And I can add more to this list, actually. Okay, we recognize these signs, I mean, all these physical behaviors, then the next step is trauma-informed teaching. I don't know whether you have heard this phrase before. Actually, I heard it recently, and I was so curious about this phrase, and I started digging into this phrase, and I read articles about it because of the problems and the issues we have been encountering, for many, many years. So, whether you have heard or not, let me share the definition very basically what it means. Trauma-informed teaching is an approach. It is an approach to education, to teaching, that recognizes the widespread impact of trauma on students and tries to create a safe and supportive learning environment. Okay, so trauma-informed teaching, to be able to recognize the impact of trauma on students, and then the next step is to create a safe and supportive learning environment. When I read this definition very carefully, to me, the key word is recognize. to be able to recognize trauma or this negative behavior. But how we can recognize it? I think the key word is here empathy. But unfortunately, the concept empathy is confused with concept of sympathy. Do you think empathy is feeling sorry for someone? Oh, I'm so sorry for you. Is it empathy? Or empathy is really to sense your students' emotions, to imagine what your students are thinking, to understand their feelings, to see the things from their point of view, and to really listen to them actively and to understand what they are telling you, what they are saying to you. Is it easy to do that as a teacher in the classroom? No, it is not, because you have to make an effort. It is not easy to be empathetic teacher because there are some layers of empathy. Are you good at observation? Are you a good observer? Because the first layer is to be a good observer. Okay, you observe. Are you aware of the behavior? Do you understand it? Do you try to understand this behavior from their perspective? Then it is time to empathize. It's not easy. It took years for me to be an empathetic teacher, really. But it is very important to be empathic because this traumatized students, your students, these young people feel like carrying a huge elephant on their shoulders. This is trauma. So if you don't empathy, you can never help your students lighten the burden of the elephant on their shoulders. So what should we do as teachers? How we can enlighten the burden of the elephant on their shoulders? Then get back to trauma-informed teaching again. There are very basic, simple rules of trauma-informed teaching, like safety, trustworthiness and transparency, peer support, collaboration, and empowerment. Okay, I will be talking about them very briefly. How we can practice these basic principles in our classrooms. Okay, shall we talk about then responsibilities of teachers? How we can apply trauma-informed teaching in our classes. As I have been emphasizing since my presentation, the first step is to recognize physical, cognitive, behavioral, emotional, and the academic signs of trauma on your students. High absenteeism, anger, tiredness, low participation, consistent failure, maybe some physical signs like scars, maybe silence, maybe disinterest. As we mentioned earlier. So recognizing is the first step, as we notice in Ali's and Alex's cases. So the second one is creating safety and trust in your classroom. How to establish a physical and emotionally safe learning environment. Instead of expressing what it means, I will ask you very simple questions, okay? Please visualize a checklist, yes or no checklist. Now, visualize. I'm not gonna share it with you right now, but I will ask you very simple questions. Just think about the answer. Is it yes or is it no? 1. Do you share clear expectations with your students at the beginning of your lesson or semester? Yes or no? Do you follow consistent routines? What I mean, consistent routines, I mean, do you stick to your lesson plan, your curriculum, your extracurricular activities? Is it yes or no? Are you sensible to your students' individual needs? Yes or no? Do you focus on positive behavior and mutual respect during your teaching? Yes or no? Do you revisit your rules, expectations regularly? Do you remind them to your students? Yes? No. Do you use kind and inclusive language? Yes or no? I wish we were face to face and I was able to ask you how many of you really answered yes, how many of you answered no, really. But if you answered most of them as yes, then you are really good at creating safety in your classroom. Basically, this item tells us to arrange our classroom in a good way to minimize chaos in our classroom or during our teaching. Even designating spaces for different activities for independent reading or group work or whole class activities can be a good idea because we know that each method has its own techniques and materials. Another example to add for this item could be, for example, do you have regular emergency drills in your classroom for earthquake or for fire? Because we experience earthquake and we keep experiencing it very often in Turkey, we do a lot of drills in our classes. So I just want to hope that the kids know what they should do during an earthquake instead of being in a panic. So this is creating safety in your classroom. The next item is building positive relationships. What I mean with this item is to foster positive teacher-student relationships for a supportive atmosphere. Maybe using clear communication in the class, being open and honest with your students about classroom expectations, maybe realistic expectations. Yeah. Definitely, even this clear communication will make a huge difference in your classroom. For example, if there's a change in your lesson plan, why don't you inform your students in advance? Don't shock them and explain the reasons behind the modification. Do you share your grading criteria and assessment method at the beginning of the course or at the beginning of the term? Do you provide timely and constructive feedback on assignments to your students? These are really closely related with building positive relationships. What about cultural sensitivity? Respecting cultural differences is very, very important for trauma-informed teaching. Creating a more inclusive environment can really heal your students. But how can we do that? Again, there are different ways of doing it, but the simplest way of doing it is to use inclusive language. I'm sure you might have heard a lot about inclusiveness, diversity recently. Inclusive language means very simply, for example, to use neutral terms, saying maybe everybody, someone, somebody, people, instead of gender-specific terms. Or maybe avoiding assumptions. Maybe instead of saying traditional family, you can say families, you can say caretakers. Or at least you can ask your students to bring examples from their cultures or from their backgrounds. Not only the inclusive language, but using inclusive materials and including diverse perspectives and backgrounds are very important. Please, please, please remember, your unconscious judgments and assumptions may really hurt your students' feelings. When discussing cultural topics, make sure that the materials and the language you use are respectful language. The next item can be promoting empowerment and choice. What I mean with this item is to provide your students with a sense of control and choice in their learning. I know this is a bit cultural thing. Again, it is not very easy to do that, but try to allow your students to make decisions about their learning materials, about their goals, about their, expressing preferences. And ask them to explain the reasons why they are choosing it. Maybe you can provide your students with options and explain the educational benefits of each choice. And maybe ask for student feedback using some surveys or classroom discussions and make adjustments based on their feedback and the suggestions. And the next item is collaboration and the support. Collaboration with other professionals as a teacher, like with counselors or the specialists, might be very important because we are talking about trauma. And I told you, we are not psychologists or the psychiatrists. We may need support from these experts. But even if you don't have these sources, you can use buddy system. I love this system. At any level, primary, high school, or the university level, you can pair up your students and you can assign buddies at the beginning of the term, semester, and encourage them to check in on one another because they learn from each other. Or you can use collaborative learning groups. You can organize your activities, projects, which promote collaboration among your students. You can foster an environment that students feel comfortable working with each other and support each other's learning again. Or peer mentoring. This is another option. Experienced students mentor the newcomers, but remember to train your mentors before this training activity, because at least they need to know how to listen actively. Maybe collaborative problem solving approach or group reflection sessions are good techniques where students discuss their learning experiences, or they can just, you can integrate some problems into your curriculum and you can encourage your students to work together to find solutions about these challenges. Yeah, these are really wonderful techniques you can use in your classroom. And the last one is continuous learning and the reflection. Actually, this is all about you. It is about professional development because we know the importance of the professional development. Teachers should engage in continuous development and learning together. They can hold regular class meetings with students or with each other. They can discuss the cases. They can criticize. They can share feedback. Yeah. So continuous learning and the reflection for teachers. In addition to these activities or these techniques, I can share more practical tips actually about what I did during pandemic, just to help my students, although they are at universities, doesn't matter what level, we were all, affected by the pandemic. Actually, it is still around. I don't know what it is like in your countries, but in Turkey, many people are hospitalized still because of influenza. You can ask your students to create their pandemic dictionaries or whatever the trauma is related with. It can be earthquake or fire or migration. I don't know. Okay. What I did, I asked my students to prepare a pandemic dictionary, because if you remember, we created interesting words during the pandemic, like mask up, mute yourself, unmute yourself, shelter in place, herd immunity. Yeah, just let them prepare their own dictionary, because even this activity will help your students to perceive trauma as a natural process people go through and handle the difficulties, manage the challenges. Or you can ask your students to reflect on their lives. I asked them during the pandemic to write about what they ate, what they wore, how they worked, studied, how they exercised, how they socialized during the pandemic, how they felt during all these activities. I encourage them to reflect on their lives before and after the pandemic or any disaster, whatever it is, and what healing from these difficult moments they got. What kind of healings came after all these activities. Or you can ask your students to share their concerns. Why not? This is a kind of language switching. It can be a good technique. You can ask your students to list the words for emotions in their own languages. Minutes ago, we were discussing about L1 and L2. Ask them to prepare some emotions in their native language and then in the target language. And please pay attention how they utter these sentences, how they say these emotions, and then let them aware the change. This is a wonderful linguistic tool, by the way. Just try it, okay? And the other thing, helping them to create individualized learning plans. Please collaborate with your students to create individualized learning plans based on their goals and aspirations. You can provide resources, you can support tailored to their unique needs, conduct one-on-one meetings to discuss their learning challenges, for example, and how they can make their personalized learning plan. Yeah. These are wonderful techniques and the approaches. As I told you, I mean, we can add more to this list, but we have very limited time, so I am stopping it. After all these activities, whatever you do in the classroom, please, this is the last step. Reflect on your lesson plan and ask questions. Self-reflection is a wonderful technique for your professional development. Hey, did the activity truly serve my teaching objective and students' needs today? Did it have a true learning value for my students? Did it really help them heal? Make some reflections. What changes did I need to make in my plan to make the lesson more valuable? How should I design my lesson or their task next time after this self-reflection? What challenges do I encounter during my teaching? These questions is a wonderful way for your self-reflection to improve yourself. Yes, through trauma-informed teaching, we can cultivate an educational environment where every student feels seen, heard, and valued. Please, please remember, the impact of trauma-informed teaching reaches far beyond the classroom walls, and it extends into future. It shapes our world where understanding and empathy are the cornerstones of education. I hope this presentation was not very pessimistic, but my goal here was to raise your awareness about your students who are in your classroom right now and who needs maybe your special attention. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much for your participation. If you would like to stay in touch with me or send an email, this is my email address. Now I am going to stop sharing so that I can see you all myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Evrim, for everything. Thank you for the interesting presentation. You were telling that the responsibility of teachers is not only to give a lesson and giving exams. It's also recognizing, creating safety in your classroom, building positive relationships, cultural sensitivity, promoting empowerment and choice, collaboration and support, with body collaborative learning groups and continuous learning and reflection.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for
Yes.
being with me.
Thank you so much for this very nice presentation. I would like to ask the participants if you have any questions for Dr. Evrim. If you have, please raise your hands so we can give you the mic. Yes,
I have unmuted Sir Gamal. I have unmuted Sir Gamal if you'd like to participate. So the mic is with you, Mr. Gamal.
Mr. Jamal, are you here? Mr. Jamal Hassan.
Yeah, and Dr. Hind also. I have
Dr. Hind,
unmuted
yes.
her.
Dr. Hind Amin. Dr. Hind Amin, we are waiting for your question. And Mr. Jamal as well.
Mrs. Hala also. Yeah, and Mrs. Hala, if she would like to say something.
Miss Hala. Miss Hala, Mr. Jamal, Dr. Hind. Any questions?
Yeah, Mrs. Najwa also. She would like to participate.
Miss Najwa, if you are here, please raise your hand. Sorry, please unmute yourself. So we're still waiting for Dr. Hind, Mr. Jamal, Miss Hala, and Miss Najwa. Miss Hala, please.
Thanks much for all the good presentation from you, Doctor. Thanks much. I enjoyed it very, very much. And I wanted to tell something. I think teachers also can participate with their students inside and outside the classroom, maybe in social activities with the parents outside, maybe in in trips or something like that, to be close, to be near, to feel them as all a group or one family together. I think this make a good relation and strong relation between student and the teacher and also their parents. This is one idea I just to share with you, and thank you for all the good information and the good presentation from you. Thanks much. You add a lot to me. Thanks much.
Thank you very much for
Thank
this
you, Ms. Hala,
wonderful comment. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hala, so much. Would like to have Mr. Jamal, if you are there, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question? Mr. Jamal? Dr. Hind?
Can you hear me?
Yes, please. You have the mic, please go on.
So you can hear me? You mean?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, first of all, thanks for the presenter. Thanks for your valuable presentation. And I'd like to say one thing. The teacher is a king in his class, and he has to take into consideration all his subjects, you know. He has to do what we call differentiation, take into consideration everybody's case as a single individual learner. Because there is not one, you know, side that fits all people. This is a tragedy. We need to consider everybody's as a separate case, as an individual. Even now, we have what we call adaptive tests. So we'd like to know exactly what your learners are like, everyone as an individual case. And then you divide for everyone whatever suits for him. That's why differentiation plays a very important role in teaching. There are many things to take into consideration. You have already mentioned most of them. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. There are many factors happening at the same time in the classroom, and it is very difficult. I mean, what makes our profession very difficult, really? Different students, different backgrounds, different psychologies, different learning styles. So it is very difficult to be a teacher, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay, I think I am done. Do you have any other questions?
I think we have one with a question, but before this, we'd like to share you again the QR code for the certificates of attendance. Please get a screenshot from them. Do I have Miss Rihab Adel for a question? Rihab Adel?
Can you?
Yes, Miss Rihab, yes, we can hear you. Please go on.
Okay, thank you. Evrim Ustanoğlu Hoca, merhaba.
Merhaba.
Oturumunuz hakkında hiçbir şey söylemeyeceğim. Muhteşem oldu gerçekten. Sadece teşekkürler söylemek istedim. Kolay gelsin canım. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Thank you. That's a wonderful Turkish. Where are you from?
Egypt. I'm from Egypt.
Egypt.
Wonderful
Turkish.
Thank you so much. Gerçekten Türkçe oldum.
Hope to see you in person someday at one of the conferences. I would love to meet you.
İnşallah. Thank you so much. Tanıştığımıza memnun oldum canım.
Ben de.
Teşekkürler. Güle güle. Thank you. Kolay gelsin. Thank you so much. Görüşürüz canım. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rihab, for the wonderful Turkish language. We can guess a little bit that you are thanking Miss Evrim for her amazing
it was great
presentation and wishing her a wonderful time, and you got a lot of information from her presentation. Is that a good guess?
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you
and
for
we still have 5 minutes. I think, Mrs. Mariam, we still have 5 minutes if anyone wants to ask or participate.
Yes, again, I may be allowed to talk. Yeah.
Mr. Jamal?
Yes, please.
Is
generally
that you? Okay,
speaking,
yes, please.
Okay, generally speaking, I'd like to say that there is what we call language learning as well as language acquisition. And they are complementary, not contradictory. You see, so look at our little children when they learn their mother tongue. Nobody sits with any children to, teach them the language before they go to school. However, they pick up the language, and this is the case of language, acquisition. But when they go to school, they start academics. So they learn now language, not just acquire it. However, in society, there is a wider scope, of resources, so they can acquire the language as well as, learning it at school for academics. So both, ways, both techniques work hand in hand to enhance language, proficiency and language mastery. And whatever we learn are just theories, and theories change over time. There is always new updates. Whatever comes next, tries to implement some new additions, some new changes, some amendments. So language is always in progress, and change never stops. This is very common in language. Whenever we used to know old theories, translation or others, or a grammar, approach or else, and communicative approach now. So there is always change. So we have to update. Teachers have to make sure that they are updated all the time with whatever is going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful comment. Yes. We are surrounded by a lot of techniques and the approaches and the technology nowadays. I don't know how much advantages of technology you have taken in your own countries right now, but in Turkey, we use a lot of technology in the classroom, and it really works well. Of course, it brings a lot of disadvantages as well. But, we are teachers and we have to adapt ourselves to all the changes happening in the world right now. We can't stop it. Thank you. Okay, is it possible to get all the questions written in your chat box later? Miriam or Samar?
I couldn't hear your last sentence.
Okay, my last sentence is... Okay, I was telling you that yes. I know that some participants might have given some questions, asking some questions. Is it possible to see them after the presentation? Will you share them with us?
So I'll give the question to Ms. Samar. Ms. Samar?
No, in question and answer.
Someone was asking about courses for drama. Is this available, or what should they do if they would like to teach drama?
Sorry, I think I missed this question. Did you ask this question? Because your internet is not very stable and it was really choppy. I missed some of your sentences. Can you ask the question once more, please? I can't hear anything. I'm sorry. Is it you or it is my internet connection? I don't have any idea, but I can't hear you.
Miss Samar will send you the question on your private inbox, okay?
Please, because so I can't hear you. Okay.
Yeah, wonderful. there is something happened with the internet, which is fine. It was fine. Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Dr. Evrim, for everything. Thank you for the nice presentation. Thank you for the advices that you give to teachers, and good luck for your future work. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have any extra questions, you can put them in the Q&A icon, and we can send the question to Dr. Evrim or to any of the other speakers if you have any other questions for them. So thank you, Ms. Evrim.